Hey, this is Jim Spellman from Velocity Girl, and you're listening to StageCraft.
This is Sarah Shannon from Velocity Girl, and you're listening to StageCraft.
That's all. It doesn't matter. Call letters don't. Who cares?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, who tunes their radio?
Well, I tell you, StageCraft, the first concert I saw was Kiss in 5th grade.
Yes.
77, something like that, at the Cap Center. And talk about StageCraft. I still don't know if there's a band that has eclipsed that. I mean, Gene's breathing fire, spitting up blood, there's like, it was just amazing. And yeah, and it was such a communal experience. Every kid there wants to be a part of this thing.
There was nothing like that at the time, right?
Nothing like it in entertainment, but also nothing at all like that in a regular suburban kid life.
Yeah.
And so it had such a huge impact. And then for me, the next big wave of stuff, I saw other arena rock bands, Van Halen and stuff with very charismatic singers. But then the real thing that flipped for me was seeing the Slicky Boys, who were sort of pivotal local band here in D.C., in their own way, very charismatic, very colorful, and really putting, equal or more effort into connecting with an audience, and their StageCraft for, a few hundred people at the 930 Club or something versus the Capitol Center. And then that bled into, punk rock and seeing Fugazi and Discord bands and stuff. Also very, very different, no costumes, nothing like that, but just full on connecting with every individual, in the crowd.
Why do you think punk rock had more of that connection to the audience?
Well, there's clearly, by design, less division between the audience. So,
yeah, smaller venues.
I mean, literally, what as a musician, I loved at those shows. You could go and look at the amp and the chord and every little thing, But also, the DC's version of that too was I worked at Montgomery Ward's for a while, and Mark Noon, the singer of Slicky Boys, came in and bought a refrigerator. And I didn't sell refrigerators, but I went and got him like an employee discount. I saw him at recently and talked to him about that. And so first off, wow, this is like a regular person. This is an achievable thing that's happening here. This is something I could do. And then I've told this story before, but so Yesterday and Today Records, that was in Rockville. That was my place to go, and buy punk records. When I first heard the Ramones, and then it was like I'd go out and I'd save up $10 and I'd go out and be like, okay, now what, and one of the the clerks were like Ian and Brendan and stuff. And then later, I was sort of mortified that I was treating them like retail clerks, even though that's what they are.
I know.
But the takeaway from that was, Kiss, you didn't go and have Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley waiting on you at a store. So that connection was like on the stage, off the stage, in the community. You saw them there seeing other bands play.
It was a show.
At a show, yeah. And then when they were on stage, though, they were speaking peer to peer. That had a huge impact on me.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Well, tell us, you said you didn't like being on stage at the very beginning, Sarah?
Yeah, well, before I get into that, Jim inspires me to talk about the very first show I saw, which was Blondie at Meriwether Post Pavilion. But they had a very interesting, like I've never thought about it before, sitting here talking to you. They had a very interesting stagecraft, a way of being on stage that was not super interactive or dynamic, but it was very engaging. Like of course they looked amazing. That was one thing. The visuals were amazing.
It was the way they dressed?
Yeah. The dudes wore suits and Blondie wore whatever she bought from whatever, Alphabet City up in New York. And of course she sounded amazing. But her style was really I mean, she moved a little bit. You know, she danced a little bit. And of course, I don't know if you're allowed to say this today, but she was very sexy, you know, and yeah, I just trying to, it's like, why was I so into it without what Jim's talking about, which is a visceral, like they're almost like, they're literally like sweating on you. You know what I mean? And,
but of course, there's degrees of
yeah,
this whole. I mean, what Jim was describing with Kiss was
right.
That was kind of like theater. Well,
Right.
not kind of like it was theater.
Yeah.
While Debbie Harry, she was more of a musician. You know, I hate to denigrate Kiss, but
Yeah. Well,
good
yeah.
songs, too.
I mean, the visuals were right on. They just look so good. These like trim guys in these trim suits. They could play very well. You know, they looked, even their kind of boredness, you know, they looked a teeny bit bored.
Aloof.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the word. You know, you didn't mind it because that's, you wanted that there was an allure to it. And Debbie Harry, you know, she moved, like I said, she moved some, and she would like kind of move her shoulders and her hips just a little bit. And like she would, I remember she went up to the front of the stage and she bent down. This was like the most she moved. She bent down and she said, you with the comb. I can't remember the rest of the lyrics, but there's a song, you with the comb. You're over there, something or other.
Yeah. Even if there wasn't a person with a comb.
No, she pointed. You was like,
You know, it seems that there's kind of if you're Kiss or you're like you know, in some kind of crazy punk rock band, it's like we're gonna go and get you in the audience, and it sounds more like the Deborah Harry approach is come and get me.
yes,
Come and let me be drawn in.
For
Let
sure.
me draw you in.
And they were the real deal. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you talk about Alphabet City back then. That was rough. It was a rough place.
Yeah.
You know, they played CBGBs, and they were the real deal, even though they looked polished. They were real people without airs.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, it seems like you got to have the goods. You got to have songs that connect. Now,
Yep.
if you're talking about Kiss, you know, calling Dr. Love, this is not the same as, you know, Springsteen or Deborah Harry. I mean, you know,
I didn't
but
mean to
for
put
that
him
moment,
down.
no, I'm with you. But for that moment, it's just right, and it is in alignment, because I think everybody would agree, no matter how much stagecraft you have, if there's no there, it
Sure.
is pointless. Yeah,
Sure. We've had who are they? This Toastmasters on StageCraft too, and
really.
yeah, and all they have is the speech to carry them.
Wow.
But let's face it, if you don't have something to say, no matter how good you can speak, it doesn't matter. No one's going to listen to you. So it just, you know, you definitely have to have content, to put it very bluntly.
I'm wondering, Don, when you're recording bands, do you feel there's like a connection between the recording and stagecraft and that, you know, are you trying to capture some of that on tape?
Yes, but it's, you know, it's very, very touchy because, you know, of course they're not in front of an audience, and I don't know what they're going to be doing, but I could see some songs just connecting better with an audience. Just the other day, there was, I listened to a song that somebody sent me in MP3s and things like that, they get at a time, and the intro was far, far too long. And it was far, far too boring. And immediately, you know, if they did that on stage, they would lose the audience. But that's sort of a, you know, it's a factual thing. You know, in other words, you can't, especially with pop music, and this is a pop song, you can't do that.
No.
So, you know, I could say to them, hey, just cut it back or cut it down. When you're recording stuff, it's a little bit harder simply because they've worked it all out already, and they've got it set.
when in Velocity Girl, so we recorded early material with Don, and then we recorded an album in Memphis with this guy Bob Weston. But then our second album, Simpatico, we had like a full-on producer.
That was Teen Beat, wasn't it?
No, on Sub Pop.
Sub Pop,
yeah.
Sub Pop, yes.
So we had this producer John Porter, this English guy, who produced the Smiths, and he produced the Smiths, and he was in Roxy Music, and he'd produced a ton of stuff, and he was a real song-oriented producer. He had an engineer and who dealt with microphones and sounds, and he mostly dealt with songs. And he was able to, even though it bruised our egos at the time, to say what you just said. This is too long and boring. We're not doing this 6 times. Why are you doing it 6 times? Why are you, And he brought a real, like, merciless discipline to it. But it's interesting now because when we play these songs later at the time, but in our recent reunion shows, I can really feel the wisdom. I'm, in the back behind the drums. So the StageCraft, I think, is not so much jumping around, obviously, or whatever, but it's like, I feel like I want the person all the way in the back to be moving. I'm driving the boat, and I feel like I got to drive the whole thing. But boy, is it easier when you're not boring them with parts. When you've got an exciting intro, that you put the pieces together, and it's in a good way. It's so much easier to make those connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of little things as far as just the arrangements of songs. Don't do the third verse twice at the end, or all that stuff that makes them much better. And you mentioned Roxy Music. That was one of them I was going to mention. You were talking about Debbie Harry and her band being sort of aloof, I guess, was it that it? And Roxy Music struck me that way, and they pulled it off really in a very regal type way.
Yeah.
It's almost like, it's wonderful that you are here, but, and we're going to entertain you. Here is the nugget of gold we're going to throw to you.
You're welcome.
Wow.
It is.
Well, that's an interesting thing, too, because when you look at Roxy Music, Brian Ferry, and also you look at maybe bands like Duran Duran or something that wear, like, suits and, like, like they bring, like, there's many approaches to this, right? But, like, the suit rock, like I've been to an exquisite Robert Palmer or something. I've been to like an exquisite tailor. That's an interesting approach too, because like I don't associate that with. That's not my jam, But like that can make you really feel like you're seeing something happening.
Or the person on stage, I don't know if this comes out right, respects the audience enough that you feel you need to respect them by listening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah, you got to indicate that. I remember seeing the Cars back in the day, and they didn't say anything. It was, I think it was at Merriweather, Hello Maryland, and that was it. I was like, okay, maybe this is just the vibe at a car show, but I didn't feel that invitation to listen to nuggets of anything. It was just like, come on, speak to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what drove us all to the smaller, more intimate venues, because you could feel it. It's palpable, that energy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I grew up in the time where the bands in the 60s, early and mid 60s, where they just stood there. So I had, all the new stuff where bands were really performing on stage. I could see a big contrast to it.
Right. Like matching suit bands, that kind of...
Nero jackets. And you can go back to some of they had some rock and roll shows at the time where, the bands come on and they lip sync to their song, but they literally just stand there. They really just stand. They have their spot on stage, or they have a little podium or a little whatever you call it that they're on, and that's it. That's it.
In the beginning of Velocity Girl, we mostly just the guys and everybody mostly just stood there, and then I think none of us really knew what to do, and then
everybody starts out like
then we played especially we played with this band Superchunk from North Carolina, who were like pogoing around, super energetic, And I think they had a big impact on us in like kind of cutting loose. And I've been posting social media stuff since we've started this reunion a few months ago, and including like watching like, you know, YouTube live videos and stuff. And sometimes it's like we're like mega rocking out, you know, and jumping around and like it's really energetic. And then in our more recent reunion shows, we've played twice so far, and we got a couple coming up. But Sarah was completely like on fire, and I'm wondering, Sarah, what it's like. Sorry, I'm going to ask a question. What's it like though being a front person? Because you really have to. You don't have a guitar to hide behind.
Yes.
You don't have whatever. It takes so much courage, and I think sometimes people are dismissive of something. But oh my God, anyone who's played music, I think like being that front person. My God, it takes so much bravery. What's it like?
Yeah, well, I'm terrified most of the time. And I think although I didn't have an instrument, I mean, you could probably see my knuckles turning white holding onto the microphone stand early on for dear life.
You can move around though.
Yeah, but I didn't at first. Yeah, I was scared. I've oftentimes early on used some liquid courage, you know, which helps sometimes, but ultimately is not the best way to cope with any challenging emotion. So, yeah, it's scary, but then, you know, you're up there, and then the audience is giving you something, and it becomes there's a third entity, you know, where you're creating something together, and it's the best feeling I've had in my life. I mean, I should probably say maybe the birth of my children was first best. That was the second best, and the fact that we got to do it for as long as we did, yeah, I feel like I got better and better at putting myself out there. I hardly ever spoke, even towards the end of our first run. I was too nervous. I didn't know what to say. And
so, was it the audience connecting with you, like letting you know, oh, you know, we love this, and that? Then you feed off that, and
yes.
then okay.
You know, dancing, singing, just watching us, even just a little head bob or a smile. Yeah. And just also, you know, the kind of music we played, you know, there's something very powerful about all that noise, even though my mother complained that she couldn't hear me. But, you know, we've got this kind of noise backing us up, and it's powerful. And so it just felt, yeah, it was wonderful.
And by nature, pop music is hooky, so
yeah,
you're constantly grabbing the audience.
Yeah, and we had some nice melodies that people could grab onto pretty quickly.
But the hardest thing, I think, is, you know, unless you're the Beatles and you come up on stage, you don't have a connection with the audience yet. How do you sort of kickstart it so that you could see them having fun, and so you have more fun, and they have more fun, then you have more fun, and, you know, it just snowballs. How do you kickstart it?
Yeah, I would say I personally just have to go straight in, is what I do now. Meaning I'm so nervous, I'm so hyped, I'm so excited, I want to do so well, I'm afraid of doing badly, and I just kind of put that all together, and it's like I'm being launched. And so I just sort of let myself launch with all these mixed feelings, some of which are very uncomfortable, and I hope that people grab onto it.
For these shows, what we tried to do anyway was first off, pick a first song that is going to really grab people, and also that we can play pretty easily, pretty confidently.
Yeah, not going to mess up.
Not going to probably mess up. And but we decided to blow through 3 songs without saying anything, and then exhale and have a chat with the crowd. But just they know what city they're in. We don't need to tell them. They know we're here, and do that and get a little blow off a little bit of the thing. And being the drummer, I feel very much like it's my job, like I said, to kind of connect all the way to the back, and also to be sure that the rest of the gang doesn't have anything to worry about. That, if they flub a chord, the drums are going to keep going. And, of course, the first of our so far 2 reunion shows at the Black Cat, I had for people who don't know, the snare drum has their snares, and they have a little lever, and you turn them on or off. And when it's turned on, it sounds like crack, crack, crack snare drum. When it turns off, it sounds like a weird timbale or something. And I turned them off between sets so they weren't rattling around during the other bands. So we come out and we're going to blow right into the song, and I had the snares off. So I had to try to reach down with one hand and turn the snares back on. It was like, oh my God, of course. So, but fortunately, at least they didn't notice, so it didn't distract them too much. I was like, oh God, this is going to be terrible, the whole thing. But fortunately, that was really the only real issue. But
even mistakes like that, it's real. I'd rather see them mess up or, than it just be sort of static, or we're delivering this music and anything.
You're gonna.
We want something.
If you come to Velocico, sure, you're gonna see 1 or 2 real moments like that. But I'm sort of blown away in retrospect by how much work goes into being a full-time band. And gosh, in the beginning of Velocity Girl, so I had recorded in this other band that I play guitar in, High Back Chairs, at Inner Ear, and one of the relatively speaking in the first few months of the when Don moved out of the house into that space, and I was in that band as much as we could do it, in Velocity Girl as much as we could do it. I was in this band Tone that were playing shows as well.
You were in Tone.
I was in, because Norm, basically anyone with a guitar that he was friends with. He moved down here from Pittsburgh, and he lived in a house with me, and me and several people played guitar in his. So I didn't really have much to do with it except just playing exactly what he wrote. But I was doing all of that at the same time, and going to college and working like 3 jobs. I don't know, and recording at night at Inner Ear, recording overnight at Inner Ear. It was crazy the amount of energy to bring to it. But what I was going to say is that I'm blown away by how much work goes into, that people don't see, practice and stuff. And starting from scratch to do these reunion shows, when we hashed it out, we were this opportunity to play this show at Black Cat came up while we were also contemplating putting out some compilation stuff. And Sarah happened to be in town, and we all were at my house, and we talked it through. And when we decided to do it, one of the things we agreed on is that we will really practice a lot, and that we will take it all seriously, like making sure our amps sound the way we want and the sounds are together. And we practiced way more than we ever did before for one show. And that's the part of StageCraft, I guess, you don't see, but really a difference in being confident in what you're trying to do. That even if you have a mistake or something like that's fine, but your overall thing is confident, and we feel like it's what we're trying to express. That was like, for these shows, been a huge part of being able to go on stage and feel like you can just kind of make that connection and not be worrying, wait, how many times do I play this? Am I, for the guys, what pedal do I step on now? Like that stuff's kind of on autopilot, so you can just kind of deliver.
Yeah, that takes time though. Boy.
It does. We practiced a lot. I mean, we practiced all separately, of course, and then we practiced maybe 4 or 5 times without Sarah. Then for 3 separate 1-week times with Sarah would come to town, and we'd practice 4 or 5 days in a row for hours. and then this week we're practicing these 4 nights before 4 3-hour practices.
Adding some new songs.
New songs. There's also that aspect. We had to like relearn songs and
Yeah, that takes a lot. Just a new song will take tons of time.
tons. So
Do you have to rent practice rehearsal space, or do you do? Okay,
well,
and that's
so
a-
we practiced at my house with these quiet drum heads. They're called Remo silent stroke drum heads, and these quiet cymbals, which is good. You can kind of get 75% of the way there. And we practiced a couple of times. We practiced maybe 15 times altogether in that setup. But then right before the shows, we moved to this place called 7 Drum City.
We know it well.
Yeah, and we didn't really have that back in the 80s or 90s, really, like commercial spaces like that. But it's so easy to just walk in and you can play loud, and you don't have to worry about family members and neighbors. And also there's something also that is, I mean, DCS very much has practice in your basement culture. Other cities have. I lived in Denver for about 5 years, and I was in just a casual band with some people, and we rented a practice space for, gosh, I don't know, not even $100 for a whole month, 24/7 lockout. Everybody does that. So there's different culture around.
Not here,
no. So there's different culture around that, and when it was like living in group houses and stuff, there was a lot of great mix of people, coming to practice in someone's house. But now it's really quite nice to leave our regular life and our regular houses and everything and go to practice mode is been very nice for these practices.
Yeah, it feels official. It's like, let's make the most of our time. We're not going to be having long conversations about what
Paying.
Right.
what we ate the night before. Yeah.
But of course, it is work, and
Totally.
musicians usually, I mean, for the most part, a lot of people get into music and say, "Hey, I'm going to have a good time," and the work part of it sort of, I don't know, I don't want to do
work.
that.
Yeah.
It's so much work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the show we played at the Black Cat. We played with a bunch of bands. The band right before us was Ted Leo and the Pharmacists. They were right before us, right? And they're good. They're so sharp. And Ted Leo's vocals are quite challenging. Just his vocal range and the preciseness of his lyrics and his melodies. And afterwards I was just like, and I felt really good about our performance. But afterwards I was like, you know what? I want to pay more attention to the monitors, because as I was watching some footage, I'm like, I'm a little pitchy here. And I was like, I want to do what Ted does. You know what I mean? I want to have vocals be so crisp and strong, but still rock out.
And still connected.
And
not just listening to some abstract.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it made me think about touring. And I mean, that's not something that we're going to do. We might be able to do one-offs here and there. But that's something I really loved about touring. You mentioned being inspired by Superchunk and, doing the pogo, moving around. I miss that. I miss watching a band every single day and watching them, whatever, their strong points and their not so strong points, and learning from them and being inspired by them. And frankly, stealing from them. I think when we toured with Billy, I kind of stole Tanya Donnelly's dance move.
There's nothing wrong with stealing good stage
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah.
Did you find they influenced your act that on the same night? Is there opening for you? Are they making you more? Are they changing your
Yes.
vibe? Making you,
Same night.
Yeah.
Same night.
That's all.
Like you'd have whatever, a band would be on fire one night. And you're like, and it was so energized you. We were on fire. You just want to get up there and blow it out of the water.
When you're able to spend, like a tour can be a lot of, there's a lot of downtime and waiting around, and there's lots of aspects.
Why
of
people
it.
smoke a lot.
There's a lot of aspects of it that are, maybe don't feel creative or connected. But really, you're in a van all day with people who are your creative partners, business partners who you love and hate, and you have this ever building history together. And you're then also with all these other musicians if you do a tour with a band or local bands, and everything from somebody's guitar sound to like their clothes to how they, are doing anything can just have a huge impact. And we played with one of the bands that I love and that we played with band Pavement, and we played with them once in Boston in an early version of that band. They had a different drummer and stuff. And then later we did a short tour with them. And they were on paper should have zero stagecraft or charisma. They wear sort of like sloppy clothes. Sometimes they look like frat boys, or they wear khakis and like tennis shoes. And they don't do any rock and roll isms, and there's no mystery, nothing, but they're so charismatic in some X factor way.
What makes them?
I don't. It's a really great question, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah.
It's almost because, if you start off like I mentioned with like Kiss or Led Zeppelin or the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, these larger than life figures on a big stage, and then these guys come out. First off, your expectations are being challenged. Your expectations are being challenged, and they have like incredible hooks and an incredible musicianship if you didn't know what musicianship was. Like, they play amazing parts that are not, like some prog rock technical band or something. But so they have the goods. They have a really kind of unique sound. They have this sense that they're not really trying, but they clearly are.
Casual,
yeah. But somehow it's extremely engaging. Whereas then the 100 post-Pavement rip-off bands you see have none of that. Like, they try, but it don't have this X factor of those exact people. But you go crazy trying to figure out something like that, huh? Trying to figure out what is the ingredient there.
It reminds me of like Johnny Marr. I'm sorry. And he's not, Mr. A, he's not jumping up and down, but he's got the goods.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as you're talking about it, I'm picturing them and I'm trying to figure it out. It's like, it's a kind of self-confidence that's not cocky at all. I don't know what the magic sauce is. I really don't, but they're completely engaging.
So you mentioned Johnny Marr. So I saw this. I feel very fortunate. I saw the Smiths in 1985 at Warner Theater with Billy Bragg opening. Yeah. And so Billy Bragg, later he did some full band stuff, but his thing at the time was just him and an electric guitar. And he walked out. The amp, I believe, if I recall correctly, was sitting out there just on the floor, small amp. And he walked out with his guitar case, put the case on the ground, opened it, put it on, plugged into the thing, stepped to the mic and just went, "The Pity Girl," like started just like right in. Wow. And it was so compelling. This one guy standing there against the world with no anything, no other people, no big amp, no elaborate lights, anything. And it was extremely moving to me, and I was really quite taken by it. And he talked to the audience a lot, and he talked about politics, and he talked about live music, and he talked about all sorts of things, and he was incredibly compelling. And then you had really kind of a 180, the Smiths, and the curtain, drew or whatever, and they they played, and Johnny Marr is very mysterious, and then you have this rhythm section. It's a classic rhythm section. They don't say anything. They're doing their thing, and then you have Morrissey, the still frontman, and he had I don't know what kind of shirt he had on, but he kind of did this sort of like thing like this, and he ripped his shirt, and he said something like after the first song, like, "I seem to have ripped me shirt."
He's a character.
Does anyone have one I could borrow?
Oh, my.
And someone threw a Smith shirt that they just bought, at the Smith Muse Murder shirt, and he put it on, and he was like, "Very good." And it was like, so again, also very kind of like anti-rock, not more to do with like Tom Jones or something like that, almost the way his physicality, and so, God, there are a lot of flavors of this.
To pull that off, though.
To pull it off.
I mean, without seeming self-conscious.
That's when I talk about, like, the guts it takes to be a front person. The guts to be out there by yourself without any... I mean, guitar players, having played guitar in bands, too. Drums, you got all this... Literally, you have, like, armor in front of you. You've got stuff, And guitar players can always look down at some pedal or... flick a switch or look around at the amp whenever you need a break, or something. But singers, man,
there's the guts, the confidence to be yourself on stage, which is always gonna win with an audience, whatever that persona, whatever you are, and that was Morrissey.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that's.
But I wonder if it's what you actually are or what the audience
projects onto you.
Yeah.
Well, some of it seems like it has to be worked out. In other words, you work it out beforehand, you think about it. Okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. But when things like going with the amp on stage, coming up with a guitar and a case, opening the case, and just singing, even that, it's...
a big choice. It's a huge
big choice. Yeah, very big choice. Yeah. You got to think about, doing that. And it has great impact if you pull it off.
Yeah.
Really?
It's by no means a lack of staging. It is staging.
It is staging.
Yeah.
It definitely is staging.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would be lack of staging is, the bands that start, we've only been together for 3 weeks, so, if we make some mistakes, please forgive us. Come on, I don't want to hear that. Just play the songs right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You talk about the amount of the work too, and I think that all of this changes, as a band progresses, and the expectations change. And I remember coming to record a single. The A side was My Forgotten Favorite, and the B side was Why Should I Nice to You with Don, and it ended up being a really big, small scale, small B, big single for us on college radio and stuff like that. But, I'm not sure how it connects exactly with StageCraft, but you've saved up your $400 or whatever it would have cost at the time. And, it's a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal. This is your next chance to speak to people. You may not ever have another one. This may be it. I mean, more often than not, it probably is it, right? But this is your thing, and you want to put every moment into it in one song. You want to encapsulate everything. Later, when you're doing, I'm going to do a record with ups and downs and quiet and loud, and maybe this is a single, whatever. But that's like you just want to bring all of it, and I think that is the feeling when you are connecting with the audience. Like you want to bring all of this into this moment over the course of a set or a song or whatever.
Right. And I think there's something about you're propelled by this excitement of having done this extraordinary thing.
Yeah.
And you're wanting to present it to people. And so the excitement of like, well, we really want this to sound good. We want it to sound like the record. We hope these people like the song. And then when you get those little bubbles of, okay, they're liking it, it's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. But, it's never going to happen again. I mean, you're playing that song and you're never going to play that song like you did that day again. There are certain things in there that are not going to be reproduced.
Yeah, it's magical.
We use the word about records, about recording, not so much about live, but about recording. We really honestly see it as like magic. Like nothing existed, and then somehow a song existed, and then a recording of this song exists. And then if you're lucky enough to have a record, especially, for us, physical records, of course, are in our psyche and DNA, and like the thing shows up and you open the box and you pull it out. I mean, I've cried numerous times when you pull that thing out and like you put your own record on, like you listen to, like I did with Kiss and I did with Van Halen and the Ramones and everything else, right? You put it on and it's like you're part of this much larger thing of music, of art, of expression. And still, I'm sure we wouldn't be doing all of this reunion work if that magical feeling still wasn't there. And then you carry that onto stage, and that trying to hope that it comes together enough that some of that insane sense of wonder of having created this thing, that you can kind of extend that feeling to all those people that are there.
Yeah, and like you said, Sarah, when you see that the people get it, it just, it's so nice.
Yeah, and I think it was extra magical because it had been so long, and after all this time, these people were singing back to us. Wow. They're like, "Oh, you remember these lyrics? I didn't remember the lyrics."
There were people that came to these shows. So we played in DC in September 9th or something, and then we played the end of September in New York, Bowery Ballroom in New York, and the show here was, a lot of obviously people from DC, and it was a celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Black Cat Club. So there were people from lots of bands and lots of stuff. But the show in New York was people that were there to see us, and there were people that traveled from all over the country to come to that show. And there were people who never heard the band when we were active and only heard us after. And like it was humbling how much like it meant to them. Like it meant something. And I'm very familiar with that feeling myself. That's the feeling I have as a music fan, as a someone who appreciates art and stuff. But it's still somehow there's the imposter syndrome where you still feel like, well,
really?
but not us. Us, no, I don't know. And specifically, and I'm sure part of this is like the internet. You can look up words and stuff, but like the whole front row. I mean, everybody I could see was singing like all of the words. I don't know all the words.
Yeah.
I'm just a drummer, but like it was like that connection it's really humbling.
Yeah.
What a great time. Yeah.
Also, what's a fascinating change in the whole thing is, everyone's got a camera, and like we played the show at the Black Cat, and 3 of my friends had come from out of town, and they were staying with me, and my daughter, who was 16 then, she was running our merch thing, and she was in the car. So we're all in the car driving back to my house at 2 in the morning or whatever, and all amped up and stuff, and she's showing me all these clips on Instagram and stuff. Like, check it out. Like, instantly. Like, like literally just it happened an hour before.
Other people had posted.
Now I get to say, "Oh, okay, boomer."
Yeah, but that other people had. I mean, obviously, I know I'm aware that this happens, but it had not previously happened to me.
Yeah.
And so you see it, and you can feel that people, even though we may have mixed feelings about it, that is an extension of connection for a lot of people, and they're sharing it with their friends and their world, and that's like I'm still sort of processing that because it's like this weird film festival, these 2 shows.
That's true.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, it's just
like hundreds of videos posted of songs from people right in the front or in the back or.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. I know a lot of times I'm torn between do I want to capture this with my video or take a picture, or do I just want to just be in the moment? What is it? Matt and Kim said, no time for cameras, we'll use our eyes instead. And so I'm always fighting that, but I can't resist when I know I'm witnessing something really important in my life. I can't resist.
There's got to be a balance. You don't have to take photos the whole time or take video the whole time.
There were a lot of people though that's what they do. Like at our shows, like they have a plan. Some of them have, equipment or something. But a lot of even just with their phones, that's like their role there. They come to do that, and they stake out the spot they want right up front, and a lot of it looks incredible. You know?
Yeah, it does.
I actually enjoy trying to get a picture of the band and the audience reaction, whether it's a mosh pit or whatever, but that's the energy I want to capture, that I want to remember and share with other people, whether that they want to see it or not.
I mentioned to Don before we were started that there's this newish documentary about Fugazi, and it's all fan shot video, and from different eras, obviously all pre-cell phone video. So it's people with different kind of things. And I shot a few shows that are in it, and this one show there's clips of it, all of Waiting Room, all of like zillions of views and stuff. And it was at the Wilson Center church basement. And it has nothing to do with me. It's just that they were building this little dressing room on the side of the stage, and it was kind of roughed out with 2x4s, but not filled in. So I could climb up and have this little perch right in line of the front of the stage. So my camera is hearing the instruments on stage and the vocal monitors, not the PA. The PA was like this side of me, and it's the video is amazing, not because of me, just because the band and the audience is right there, and it's an interesting relationship to then watch that connection. You're not there, you're not in the audience, but you still get some of that. It's still kind of
you picked a magic spot too.
I picked a magic spot. Yeah.
You and Jim Saw, he gets all the good spots.
Yeah, this is not, I just randomly stumbled into this. I'm not some sort of videographer. I just stumbled into it, but it is interesting how you can then look years later and feel like you're somehow get some second, copy of a copy connection somehow.
Is that the We Are Fugazi?
From Washington. We Are Fugazi from Washington.
It isn't out yet. All I've found on YouTube is just
Yeah, well, if they showed it at AFI, and they've been going around. Yeah, next time if it shows, it's incredibly well done. It's a really great idea too, for a documentary about a band that's pre-cell phone video. Yeah. Because it's not endless amounts of clips of it,
Yeah.
But a lot of times groups, you talk about stumbling onto different things, like stumbling on, okay, you're in this spot, and it just happens to be, wow, this is a great location to be in for shooting this. But a lot of bands on stage, I think, stumble onto some good ideas to come across on stage too. Yeah, whether it be moves or stories or anything really, just to get the audience to once again to connect. I hate to use that same word over and over again, but it's so useful.
You mean in the moment, or are they
in the moment?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and then of course, and if they realize it, then they say, "Aha! I'm going to do that again."
You gotta do it again.
Well, let me ask. So Sarah was doing this. We're on radio, right? So you can't see this, but Sarah was doing this wild kind of like microphone above her head, arms stretched out, and it was great. But then you can see it again later on these videos. Do you look at the videos and then you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, no, that looks stupid. I'm going to do more of that. Yeah.
Oh, well, here's one specific thing. I'm not going to pogo. So I pogoed a couple times, and I'm feeling okay about
things were moving,
me moving my body and everything, but I was just like, so we're gonna cut out the pogo, but all that other stuff, yeah. I mean, if you do the Jesus arms with the microphone up, that's a winner. I'll do that again.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with going through the movies and saying, okay, works, doesn't work, that doesn't work, that works. Why not? Why not?
As we were talking about this, I was wondering though about, there's so many, I think we have expectations of bands in general, and some of specific people. You see Bruce Springsteen, you kind of expect a 4-hour sweating, dripping, bleeding for the crowd kind of show. But one of my favorite bands is The Replacements. and they were sort of famously anti. They'd show up, and if there were like record industry people there, they'd play Chuck Berry covers for an hour, you know, or they'd switch instruments, you know, and just screw around basically. And then, you know, if there's a great story, they were playing, they had signed to Sire Records, and they were playing, or no, they were beginning to consider maybe signing to a major label, and they played at CBGB's at a industry showcase, 1984, and their current record at the time, called Let It Be, was like, you know, in every critic's top whatever 5, it's got pop songs and heartbreakingly kind of like real kind of songs and ballads and all this stuff. And all these record industry people showed up at CBGB's to see them, and they just played 38 Special covers, and they're just artless, you know, like all they did was just fuck around.
But you have to be at a certain level to give everyone the finger like that.
But then the next day, as the story goes, they play Irving Plaza, the real show. The CBGB's was like a just for industry people. Then they play Irving Plaza, which is like 1,200 people, like a real show. And nobody was there because everybody was like, to hell with this, we're not signing this. And they played widely considered like one of their 2 greatest shows.
Nobody was there, meaning industry people,
industry people.
Right.
Yeah, and so they played like A-list. And except the one person that was there was Seymour Stein, who had been at like a New Year's party and was half in the bag. And some friend was like, "Come on, we're going to go see this," and then he signed them that night to Sire Records.
Do you think that's a smart strategy?
No,
I wouldn't do it.
Their book. There's maybe the best rock book I've ever read, called Trouble Boys, about the Replacements, and all they did was shoot themselves in the foot. And I don't think it helped them. I don't know what. I think ultimately there's no point. They were trying to be anti-music business and a bunch of, but they ended up just being kind of against themselves or fans. It's not good.
Then they have to make peace with the
borderline
contract.
jerk material.
Oh, yeah, huge jerks to everybody.
Yeah. Once again, you know, you have to, you know, if you're a unknown band, to do something like that, I mean, not only do you shoot yourself in the foot, but you shoot yourself in the head.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
I think at the time, every like the Village Voice or the New York Times, Rolling Stone would have said, you know, there's a good chance they would say it was the best or one of the best records of the year. They would say the best American songwriter, the whatever, and I'm sure that's part of it. Like, well, screw them. I'm going to show them that they're wrong. Some weird low self-esteem thing or something.
Everybody's a damn rebel.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez. Yeah, they had good songs.
Right.
There was, I mean, something pulled them along where they are, because they are legendary.
Yeah.
The songs. It's probably the songs.
Yeah. What people like that too. People like that attitude. It was like a few years into like MTV, and they were like, "We're not going to make videos. We're like, screw you. And that felt authentic, and people felt like if you go and you see this band with like the lauded songwriter and all this stuff, and they're playing Foghat tunes, you know. Or like they're trying to figure out how to play Iron Man on stage. Like you're seeing
the
something
live show, they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. They're like don't, you know, like and they're like no, wait, it's like this, you know, like dun. Okay, ducka. Like then you feel like you're seeing something authentic. Like you're seeing the opposite of U2 or whatever, you know. But then to me, as a huge fan of the band, I'm like, but then so what? Like, okay.
Yeah, like, I could see it. I mean, I was just watching a Cure video earlier, and I mean, talking about posing.
Yeah.
You know, it's theatrics, very much theatrics, but not like Kiss would be when they did live.
Right.
I've never watched a Kiss video, and they may be the same way on their videos, but to watch something like the Cure do their video, it somehow seems a little bit phony, and the audience picks up on it immediately.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you could sort of, you know, this, is it, are you for real? You know, like.
I think at the end of the day, I mean, it's actually an interesting topic, how videos, photo shoots, record covers, how all of that relates to this, how it changes your expectations. You look at someone who's not a big visual kind of performer like Tom Petty, who like mastered MTV. I mean, all those Tom Petty videos were all over MTV. And he's like the opposite of what should be an MTV star, like a song-oriented kind of roots pop, kind of like, you know, organic sounding thing, but like
he's cute, but no Brad Pitt.
No Brad Pitt. And their live show is not, you know, I mean, it's pretty, I would say, pretty kind of average rock band show. Leans on the songs, which as well as it should. But all of their videos were like over the top and like were played all the time. Even like, you know, we were doing, when we would do photo shoots for magazines and stuff. I mean, most of the time it was pretty standard fare, you know, stand here and then, you know, take a few, then like, how about the singer up front? And then, you know, like it's kind of just regular stuff. But we had to do a few. We did this one, maybe one of my top 5 worst band days ever with Interview Magazine. Do you remember that, on the beach in Malibu or something? It was terrible. It was terrible. We had to go out there really early in the morning. We got picked up and went out there really early, and they had clothes. Like, and so it's like one of these things where like the photo at the bottom says like dress by Chanel and pants by whoever, like, and all that. Completely not our world. And we were having some big fight or something.
It was after Kurt Cobain died.
Oh,
and it was in Seattle.
No. That shoot was in L.A.
It was?
Yeah, but I think we might have gone from Seattle down there.
Yeah, it was pretty soon after.
We had gone when the band was sort of at the peak of our, like, you know, music industry stuff. We had recorded this record, the record that John Porter produced, and we were in Seattle to play this sort of showcase party for Sub Pop's something 10th or whatever anniversary as a label. And while we were there, we were going to shoot a video for this record, for the first single on this record. And that day, while we were shooting the single, they found Kurt Cobain. And all these people that were working on the video, the camera guy people and the lighting people and all of that stuff, like they all knew him, and like a couple of girls had dated him, and it was like this really heavy scene. And then the next night or something, we were going to play this show. I
feel like it was that night.
Was it that night? It might have been that night. After we shot the video, then we were playing at this thing that was supposed to be this just like insider birthday party for this label, and there were like TV reporters out front, and it was a really stressful, extremely stressful thing. And it was not our thing. Like we were kind of outsiders, but we were like in the center of this.
We definitely didn't fully represent.
No, like it was,
you know, a strong enough portion of what Sub Pop had done up until that time.
No, we were like new, and it was like new for them to have non-grunge bands. But anyway, I guess maybe the next day or something, we went to L.A. and we were doing this shoot and we had to like jump on the sand, and they were like, no, jump in the air and smile. And I'm a big guy, right? And like a lot of stuff doesn't fit me. And fortunately, because of that, I managed to, I think, wear like my own pants or something. And it was just, you do this stuff, but like, God, if you saw that, the photo is just hideous. And if you saw that and then you came and saw our band, you would be like, this band's going to suck. I know this band's going to suck. Versus you see some cool looking photo and you're like, oh, this band's cool. They're going to be cool.
Yeah, it's like the stylist doesn't want to hear, this isn't us.
No, it was not.
Whose idea was it?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, the press person. I mean, Interview is a big magazine, and Interview has a way of doing things. I don't think
we understood that.
I don't think our label could have said no. That band doesn't do stylists.
We could have just said no to the whole thing, but I think the thing is that was such an anomaly that they would do style, like it was just like. But then there's that one other one, Detour magazine. I dug all this stuff up recently
for
our Instagram. I'll show you the picture.
Okay.
I remember Detour.
Detour was another really like graphic design heavy magazine. Yeah. And we did this photo and you look like a weird goth baby doll in like a horror movie, you know, that's like a possessed young girl, like.
Ew.
But then the rest of us, they only had the budget for
You
one.
joined the Cure.
They must have only had a budget for one because the rest of us are like wearing shorts and whatnot. We're like in some, in some like woods or something. We're like in the woods or something, and hanging on this like decaying frame of something, and you look like this like sort of like possessed Barbie doll, like cast off Barbie doll.
Yeah.
And the rest of us are like, when's lunch?
Yeah.
There's a really different. There's interview, detour, paste. They're a little more.
Yeah.
I guess esoteric, but they're.
Yeah, we're in
just
paste too. We're in all three of those. Sometimes you can't tell if it's an ad or the article or
Yeah.
something begins. It was.
Well, they wanted to be cool. I know. I remember Interview was very,
very cool.
sort of alt, but alt pop.
Right, right.
It used to be, yeah.
It used to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is now. Is it still around?
I don't know that it's anything now, but
Yeah. Well, that was Interview was Andy Warhol's magazine, so Image and
Yeah.
all that's gonna.
Yeah.
He had started it or something.
Right.
Yeah.
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 You done Razor Cake? That's one of my favorites. It's just like a tiny little punk zine
I don't think so.
out of California.
It's more comic book, isn't it? It's nature, the layout.
No, it's got great articles. It's got fantastic articles. But
I'll look it up.
I think there's.
we've done one for Don. Don's got an interview in there. I didn't even know about it until I saw like issues of Razor Cake here in our ear. I'm like, oh, cool. But it's not. It's not one of these punk scenes. It's just like a bunch of poetry. It's,
Oh, cool.
It's got real
What-
artful.
Don, I have a question for you. Someone you're most known for being behind the desk.
Behind the eight ball.
The name on the record, but you're a performer as well. And recently, you've been doing readings from about a book, or I'm not sure what you would call them, readings, appearances.
Just appearance.
Appearances.
We talk about the book and talk about.
What are those two
life.
things like? You're behind the desk, or you're out on stage?
It was wonderful. I thought, just going through, talking about recording. Every crowd wants something different. There's some people that want to talk a little bit about gear. I don't like getting into it too much because there's, you could lose half the audience or more. But just, some stories of some bands or some of the things that happened in the studio. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Where are you? How'd you get there? All that stuff.
It must be. So I listened to a long interview with you a year or two ago on that End on End podcast.
Yeah.
But it must be, first off, it must be weird to have recorded. You've probably forgotten more bands than you remember,
That's true.
Yeah.
Or they've changed their names.
Or they've changed their names, or they came and did a demo and that was it, or something.
Right.
But also, how often have you been recording a band and thought, this is great, this is going to have an impact, or are you just kind of in a different zone?
Sometimes my judgment is way off whack. I mean, I know when Dave Grohl came in to record his demo, and he said the new band's going to be called the Foo Fighters. I told him, yeah, don't call it that stupid.
It'll never work.
Hates it too.
It'll never work.
And dismemberment plan. I was just talking to Jason Cadell, the guitar player in the band, a couple weeks ago because we were in Richmond, and I remember arguing with him about the name of the band. I said, no one's going to remember it. No one's going to come to the shows because they can't remember the name of the band or anything like that. It's never going to take off. Get something else, like, I don't know, the Turtles or something. Who knows?
Well, also, I'm wondering, I like to take over interviews. so when I talked about like the Slicky Boys, which were like a very pivotal band around here and kind of garagey, poppy, kind of thing, but to my ears, a sort of conventional band, whereas if you start with all the Discord, if you start with Bad Brains, Minor Threat, or like Teen Owls for that stuff sounds like nothing. I mean, you guys were literally inventing something that did not exist.
They were, yes.
Well, you were. I mean, a lot of places would have said no, or would have, I don't know, but you were take some credit, you know.
Well, a lot of places did say no, and that's why they ended up here.
Yeah. But how did it feel when you were recording that? Did it feel significant? Did you have any idea people would care about that 40 years later?
No, I remember I've told this to a lot of the people that came for the book sign. I mean, I came from of playing basically pop. I mean, the first show I saw was the Yardbirds. I love that music. The Syndicate of Sound, the Circle. You know, these are all like 60s bands, but it was pop stuff, pop music, and then into folk rock because it had a melody behind it. And whenever the punk rock started, my first impression was there's no melody. Mm-hmm. And I was continually trying to sneak in, tell them, you know, let's get a little, let's try this line this way or that way, and try to get a little melody in there. It didn't work too well but that's why I liked Rites of Spring. Mm-hmm.
Things progress quickly in that circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Embrace and like One Last Wish. By then they're like complicated or not very melodic.
Yeah.
You know. So.
But what I didn't realize, because I was recording all the time, was that they did have a good stage presence. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to pogo when you're 18. You know, it comes much more naturally, and the stage presence was just something they almost, you know, a lot of the early punk bands when they played out, which they usually couldn't do at regular clubs, they just had to do it on their own. You know, they didn't think anybody would come or see them except for their fans. So there was no being scared about putting on a show, because these were people they knew. These were friends or relatives. And, you know, they could do whatever the heck they want. And they did. And the people liked it.
Well, I've talked to Ian and Brian Baker and some of my friends that were in that stuff, which was before me. I was not, you know, I wasn't around until after all that stuff. But I think that stuff is like actually totally kind of pop music at its core. There's like choruses and bridges and hooks galore, and so many, an unbelievably dense amount of charismatic singers, but players too. Brian Baker, completely charismatic. Jeff Nelson's drumming is phenomenally hooky, and, you know, like, yeah, it takes a while to get over the assault of the kind of screaming lyrics and the you know, intense whatever, but really
120 beats a measure.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, but the reason I think that 40 years later people are listening to it is because at its core are almost classically composed songs, you know, within their very different vocabulary, the ups and downs and you know, things that grab you, you know, that you could have translated that to many. Not saying you could cover those songs in like as a country rock song or something, you know, successfully, but it has a lot of the classic components, and that's sort of something we're very aware of in our band, is trying to make something that sounds like us and our time and everything, but also to be in the flow of Elvis Presley and the Beach Boys and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and Blondie and the Ramones and us, and then whatever's after.
Right. You're absolutely right. No, that's something that I always think about when a band comes in. If you want to be noticed, you have to have something new, and it's got to be exciting. But at the same time, you've got to have something from the old school. In other words, there has to be something that they recognize that pulls them in, and then when they're in, you can get them to like your stuff.
One of our gags, one of our tricks was we would listen to oldies radio station. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what it was, what the numbers were or whatever. And Archie and I worked at yesterday and today, and we listened to all these old 45s, you know, like poppy stuff. and as well as Motown and things like that. And it was like, well, if we put distortion on the bass and a lot of reverb on something and kind of bury the vocals a little bit, you can kind of get away with ripping off like Tommy Rowe, like, or, you know, you can, but the two, Tommy James and Tommy Rowe, like you could kind of do like, I Think We're Alone Now kind of thing. And if you smother it in, you know, in fuzz and reverb and stuff, you can like, we endlessly lifted from stuff like that, from stuff that was on oldies radio.
Yeah, I agree. And I love seeing a band and seeing them cover some people in a unique way. I think there's nothing better because you have a window into their character.
In most bands, I think, have like a shorthand amongst themselves when you're talking about, and we have always like Motown, do the Motown beat from the very beginning, from our first songs, do the Motown beat here, do the, you know, that, like it's often referencing not indie rock of the day, but some sort of classic pop.
Wow. Yeah. It's amazing the way it comes together. Jeez, bands. Are you tired of it?
Well, I think we have renewed energy for it, yeah?
Yeah. No, I'm not tired. I mean, in the interim, I've been playing rock music for kids, which is really fun. And, you know, the songs, I like the songs a lot. And I think they're, you know, basically pop songs, but with kid-friendly lyrics. And I enjoy that a lot, mostly because I like to play with my friends and I like to play music. I like to sing. And even though the audience is 2 feet high, you know, there's still a connection there. But with this, I just am so grateful for the chance to connect with our peers, other musicians, connect with people that came up with us, connect with the people who found us later, like Jim said, play a rock show at full volume, be able to curse if I want to. I don't think I've cursed yet on stage. I'll have to do that this weekend. Be able to move my hips a little bit if I want to. It's just, I've said this probably 5 times before, but, you know, when we started practicing, I'm listening to these guys play and they're sounding really good, you know, as in better than ever. And I feel like I want to step up and reach that same level. And like Jim said, we've practiced and practiced and practiced. And it's a lot of work, but it's so worth it to get up there and feel so strong, to feel
confident. Yeah,
and like I said, better than ever. I hope that's not a egotistical thing to say, but it's so much fun. It's so I want to find just the right word. Okay, go ahead, Jim. I'll think of it.
Well, I kind of fell into playing drums in Velocity Girl. Guitar has always been my main instrument. I started guitar in 9th grade. I started drums about 2 weeks before the first Velocity Girl show. So I can't say that I've always played drums until I need to, but I play guitar. I played every day that I can physically have access to a guitar. If I'm not on vacation somewhere far away, I play every day, and I consider my main thing songwriting. That's what the puzzle of songwriting is, the thing that I'm completely attached to. And so
in high back chairs, let me just ask, what did you play?
I play guitar in high back chair.
Okay.
And I wrote nothing. I also wrote nothing. I didn't write, and Peter Hayes wrote everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm always picking up a guitar, hoping to shepherd the next song out of it into something. And I've been in a couple of bands. Recently, I was in a band called Foxhall Stacks, and we did a record I really like. And I was in a band called Julie Ocean. We did a record. Recently, I've been playing with Nelson, who you've played with sometimes, working on a batch of my songs there. And it's very frustrating trying to be in a band from scratch. It's just to find people to play with, and the time, it's complete.
You have to develop a whole new language.
A whole new language. But, and while certainly in Velocity Girl, it's really great to have all of this built-in audience, and people are way more enthusiastic than I thought it was. But there also is, as complicated as band relationships are, there is a chemistry thing that bands have together that they don't have in different, in different combinations of people.
Side projects.
Yeah, that's just not the same. Maybe it's better, I don't know, but it's not the same. And our band has that chemistry thing. And so with this band, it's fascinating because you can get sick of a lot playing music in a full-time band for sure. But it's and even though it's sometimes we bicker and stuff like that, but the chemistry of 5 people that you've been creative partners, like I said, business partners with, that you've spent so much time with, is a fascinating thing to be part of as an older, hopefully more mature person, more focused on having a successful version of that relationship than winning an argument or whatever else. There's something that is very compelling about the people that are in a band that were able to communicate something together, being back in each other's space.
And it's just such a rare opportunity. All 5 of us are alive and well, and all 5 of us wanted to do it.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. I live in Seattle, but my parents still live here. I'm able to come back, so that piece is in place. And I think with the chemistry, like you said, the bickering, I think, is part of it. Like you got to have that tension in order to have really good chemistry. And but I think the difference now is we're much more mature. Like we had a Zoom the other day and we resolved a few things.
You had to have a little.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like your egos step aside a little bit. Your communication skills are like compared to like early 20s.
Also, so in our band, generally speaking, Archie, guitar player and singer as well, and probably I think it's safe to say is sort of the architect of the band. Kind of, he's kind of the main vision kind of person of the band going back.
Yes.
And but we all write and we all make decisions together and stuff. But Archie and I, we drove up to New York together, and one of the things, and we were talking about this whole thing and playing together, and we sort of said to each other, do you think the other people in the band know that we're happy to argue with each other, that that we fight and we're not, and it's okay? And we were like, I don't know if they know that. I don't know if they know that that's our thing and it's okay.
We do now.
We do now because we talked about this in our peace conference the other day.
Yeah, that's really good to establish because it can be disturbing. It's like, oh my God, do they hate each other?
It's Sarah and I anyway. I don't know about the rest of the band, but we now have robust histories of therapy and stuff, and it's very much like family systems.
Oh, for sure.
For sure, and. You have peacemakers, and you have, whatever.
Older siblings, younger siblings,
Yeah.
And you probably know the other person better on stage, too, and know what to expect from them. And, no, they're just doing that. Ignore them or whatever.
Right. I think now we're very much in sync. If somebody messes up or something, everyone's going to go with that person and try to do whatever you need to recover and not be mad about it or not be, have some sort of power dynamic or something. All that stuff that seems when you're a dumb 22-year-old seems important, seems ridiculous now. Yeah.
Well, the power dynamic when you're in your 20s, I don't know if that was too prevalent. Maybe I missed it at the time because most of the bands I were in, just first of all, the bands didn't have much power, so there was no power to argue over. So it seemed less an issue. More of an issue would be just the direction of the band a little bit, I guess.
I think in our band we have everybody writes to different degrees and in different combinations. Mm-hmm. And probably, to speak for myself, there came a point towards the end of the band where I'm like, it's so frustrating playing drums and not playing guitar, and writing is so laborious, and I want that to be more of a focus. And probably Archie felt he should have more of his songs, and everybody then it's like, well, I'm not getting this. There's probably power in those directions as to what's going to make and the problem with that, the real problem with that, I think, is not so much, okay, is the song I wrote all by myself and I'm presenting to the band, is it good or bad? But it's like an opportunity cost, because you've taken yourself out of participating in the larger band thing. And when it's the chemistry of those people together, you miss that when it's all just one person writing, like the last thing you want is 5 solo albums to be crammed into one record, if you write together.
Yeah. And of course there's always when you play somewhere, what song are we going to do first? Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've tiptoed around that maybe a little bit, or maybe we've been afraid we have to tiptoe about what songs to play, because if I want to say, I don't want to play that song, and it's a song Archie wrote, is Archie going to take that personally?
Yeah.
Like it's a power thing? I don't think that has happened now. We've also
not so much
our own songs, and or wanted to play somebody else's songs, but give it time.
Yeah, I could see that always being a part of it. I mean, because the songs are obviously personal. You wrote them.
Yeah.
So that I don't know how to resolve it within a band if everybody writes.
Yeah.
If one person writes, then it's resolved already, kind of.
Yeah.
But with everyone, that is hard.
But you can be constructive, right? When you write something and does the rest of the band say what they feel about it, or they just say, let's just sit with it a while.
It becomes harder, I think, when it's, again, if you're like a person, if you're like this is the band and this is the singer and the songwriter, it's more defined. But I think it can be a little more complex, just because you want to follow somebody else's vision, but if you think it might be better if it does something else, are you stepping on toes if you do it? I had one of the most rewarding musical experiences I ever had was in this band Foxhall Stacks that I was in recently. And so that was people we would all know. So Bill Barbeau, who's in Jawbox, was the singer and other guitar player. And the rhythm section was Brian Baker from Myers and Everything, played bass. And Pete Moffat, who was in Government Issue and a phenomenal drummer, was a drummer. And all these people have been my friends for a million years and stuff. But there's this one song that's on that record that's called The Old Me, and it was Brian had the music, and he couldn't quite finish it, and I took it and sort of, I was kind of merciless. I was like, this part's going with this as many times, cut this off, and assembled it back into a song, and then wrote the vocal part. And oh my God, I found that so rewarding. I've never done that before. I found it so rewarding that this guy trusted me to like get inside under the hood of this of this song and do that. It was really extremely.
It was probably a relief to him if he was stuck.
Brian is of all the people in our world, he is the most pro of pros. He is an incredible musician, also very giving musician, playing in a band with him and encouraging. And I don't think he's actually precious about stuff in that way. Like if it's going to be better, I think he would want to do it.
Yeah.
Do it that way.
Yeah.
But it's also very rare that I would do something better than him, because he's like a phenomenal guitar player and musician. And
that's hard for bands. If it's going to be better, let's do it the better way. Yeah. Sometimes, well, you're rejecting my idea, or you don't like the way I do this, or it gets touchy, very touchy.
And then you start connecting. Well, I don't know about that bass line with with why did you spilled Coke in my bag in the van and didn't say anything? You know, like why did you know you took the last bag of potato chips, you know, and didn't even offer me any, you know, now I hate you.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever seen a band take it out on stage? You know,
Well, I just saw there's something going around the
with
internet.
Brian Jonestown Massacre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broke up. Brian Jonestown Massacre had a fit. They had a
fist fight on stage
full band fit,
a couple days ago.
yelling
it
at
wasn't
each
the
other.
Eagles.
This is the worst show we've ever played. I hate you. Leave the stage. And fisticuffs ensued.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that band's like. Are they any good?
They're kind of like psychedelic. Stuff.
Where were they?
I don't remember where it
They were
was.
in, I think Melbourne, but they were in Australia. They're
they
an
had-
American band. They were in Australia.
It was a pretty big audience. I mean, that would just be so embarrassed.
But also, they're like our age. I mean, could you imagine being in your mid-50s?
No.
Gonna have a fist fight with someone on stage?
Yes, in front of the whole audience.
Just play the song, man.
Play it, get it over with. Have your fight after. Like, just don't do that to the audience who's paid, you know, what, $100 a ticket, 200. It's so rude.
It is. Yeah.
We have to be on best behavior when we're over there
Just
anyway.
get over yourself. Yeah.
That's too bad. That really is too bad. But, you know, bands find ways to shoot themselves in the foot
All the time.
all the time, for sure.
So it's pretty exciting. You got two shows.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about like how I'm gonna, because we are older. Like I'm gonna pace myself with these practices. I'm being very strict about my sleep schedule.
Yeah.
Like obviously 2 shows in a row. We used to do that 20 shows in a row.
Right.
No big deal. But 2 shows in a row for me, it's like I want to be very tender with my instrument.
For me, it's a little more, you know, nuts and bolts playing drums. But
Yeah.
I've been playing a lot, so I'm not too worried. But you know, I used the word humbling before, and so we played the show at the Black Cat for the anniversary, and it was Dante, who owns the club, had, you know, called me up and said, would you consider doing this? And it started almost like, just even if you just want to play a couple songs, you know, it's this party, there's gonna be like 6 bands, and it started with that, and then that show sold out. It was 2 nights, and we played the second night, and both sold out, and they would have sold out regardless if we played or not, you know. So it was hard to tell, you know, but a lot of people couldn't get tickets, and so we said, well, should we maybe do a headlining show at the Black Cat, you know, a couple months later. So we booked that show December 2nd, and it sold out in a day and a half, which was like incredible, because who knows if anyone's going to care. Then we added the second one, and that's going to sell out if it hasn't already.
Thank you, because it sold. The anniversary show sold out before I could get there. I was really kicking myself. So yeah, I got tickets to the first, you know, the one you added.
Friday,
Yeah.
So, and I was just telling Juanita, I said, you better get tickets if you're going to go.
Well,
You better get tickets fast.
It was, of course, Don, you're always on the list if you ever want to come. But we, so it's exciting to have these 2 sold out. I mean, the one is not quite sold out, but there were like 20 tickets left.
I had a feeling. Yeah.
So, but you know, it's great and it's exciting. It also kind of raises the stakes a little.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like we got to go do a professional rock show, you know.
But the homage to the band is
Yeah.
tremendous. I mean, it means that you have people who are really, really into the band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's thrilling,
you got
really.
the whole weekend of the Black Cat. That's really amazing, and
Completely
I don't think you have to worry. I mean, it's sold out. People are just so excited.
And 2 things were really sidebar things we're excited about. This wonderful artist named Jeffrey Archer, who makes posters and stuff. He got in touch with us, and him and his wife went on their first date to see Velocity Girl with Tuscadero, who were playing with them.
Pitter patter.
They went to their first date together, and he got in touch and was like, "I really want to make a poster for this show." And so but then we added the second, so he's made these 2 posters that are kind of companions to each other, and we're going to have 50 of those that are hand printed, that he numbered and everything for sale at 50 of each nights. And so that's really adds a special thing to it. And again, totally humbling. He found, he came and tracked us down. And then I know less about this. So Sarah and I both quit drinking between, the back then and now. But Kelly in our band is big into beer and stuff. And so this brewery called Crooked Run Brewery, I think it's called.
I don't remember.
Or Dulles or something.
There's a million.
Yeah, there's a million. Yeah. So they've made this Velocity Girl beer, and I'm blanking on exactly what it's called, but it has art from our second album.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think they finished. I think they just it physically is now done today. Like the batch, I don't really know how it works, but
wow.
And so I'm not sure if we're able to sell that at the Black Cat because it's not selling alcohol is not quite as simple as selling a t-shirt.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, but they're working on that. But if not, but still, they again just tracked us down and was like, we'd love to make something, And so Kelly kind of took that over. But it's like these people that are coming and finding us to want to be part of something
and doing what they made out of their lives, whatever beer making. Artists, designers, and wanting to make that part of our I'm going to say the word journey.
Yeah.
Well, you've had a big influence.
Yeah.
A big influence on people. And then that sort of shows it. And it's probably just the tip of the iceberg in a lot of ways.
We'll see. I think for me, one of the greatest things is it's so open-ended in that we're doing this to have fun and to sound as great as we can and to put out these new mixes. But there's no, we've got to get signed. We've got to make the big leagues. We got to play for this many people. It's all, let's see what happens. And it's that's the best.
Yeah. We have no expectations. And we're just... The show in New York, these shows in D.C., we're playing in North Carolina in January. It's all just people coming to us and saying, hey, you want to do this? We're not out trying to, whatever. So it's
wonderful.
Very fascinating to see what's going to happen with it. Also, we should mention, so it really just coincidentally lined up with playing the first show is that we're working on a couple of reissue things. So all the stuff except for the one song, My Forgotten Favorite, that we recorded with Don, has really taken on a life of its own because it's on the soundtrack to the movie Clueless. So do you have any platinum records?
No.
I got to get you one because you do because it's gone platinum.
I got to get me one.
I have a platinum record from it.
Really?
Can I get one?
Yeah, you just have to.
Molly.
Yeah. I'll do that, Don.
Yeah, Clueless is big.
Yeah. So it sold over 1 million, whatever. Yeah, I have one in my basement.
Post a picture on your Instagram. That's I'd love to see that. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's once the thing is certified, you basically just have to fill out I'll get you one, Don. I'll buy you one.
Thank you.
But except for that, all of our early stuff. So there were 3 or 4 other songs recorded at Don's, at Barrett Jones's studio, some stuff there.
You did some great work.
Yeah. And none of that stuff is streaming or available digitally. So we're doing a new compilation, and it'll have all of that stuff, plus unreleased early material and some covers and all of that. It will be in one place. They'll be on vinyl and streaming and all that.
Oh, fantastic.
And then our first album, Copacetic, and the sort of the little backstory to that was because we've talked many times about how we should have just done it with Don. We should have just but we had this.
It's a great album.
Well, we had a chance then to go out of town, and it was sort of a flex. We recorded at the Barcade studio in Memphis, and then we mixed it at Steve Albini's house with our engineer friend Bob Weston, who had been doing live sound for us. But we never really at the time exactly knew what we wanted to do with it or how to translate that to recording. We didn't know what we were doing. And we didn't have the vocabulary or the clarity. And as a result, we ended up with a record that's very unproduced, with very little basic stuff, compression, reverb, stuff that is in our wheelhouse.
Wasn't it Don who said, have you ever heard of compressors? Or
Did you say that?
Yeah.
It could be.
I think you said that to Archie.
Could be.
According to Archie. And so we ended up
Archie
with this,
itself.
we
Archie
ended up-
knows a whole lot.
Yeah,
He knows a
So
lot.
we ended up with this record that people loved, but we never really loved the way it sounded because it just doesn't have some of the 101 stuff, But we had 5 days to record it in Memphis. We came home for Christmas, and then we left, I think, on the day after Christmas. We mixed it at Steve Albini's house with Bob. Bob Wesson did it for 5
Bob's
days.
a great guy.
Great guy. For 5 days. And then we left,
easy.
and we immediately drove and went and did our next thing. And we just didn't, whatever. And for all of this time, we've always thought we'd love to remix that record. So, of course, now the technology has changed. Then you would have to go into the studio and put the 24-track on the thing, and it would have been a huge undertaking to remix the record. And nobody cared because people love the record and whatever. So just for ourselves, we went through the whole process of digging up the tapes and having them baked and transferred to digital. And Archie has remixed that record. Yeah, and we're really happy with it. And so that's going to come out on Sub Pop in a double record set with side 3 will be all the B-sides and like a extra track that we some B-side type stuff. And then the 4th side will be our Peel session. In England, we recorded a Peel session in that era. That was released on a compilation on Sub Pop at the time, but is not streaming and has never been released after. So all of those will be on one two record set.
It's got to be so cool.
Exciting.
I'm like,
It's really exciting.
When? I'm impatient. When is this coming?
Probably, I would say realistically, because everything always takes longer than you think, maybe June. I think June 1st-ish would be our hope. Also, record plants there's these terrible backlogs.
oh yeah.
Well, are you looking then at touring?
So at that, when
'Cause
that
that's
comes
sweet.
out, our hope when that comes out. So we were, I guess, popular in all the places bands are popular, including
Major market.
major markets. But we did really well in Los Angeles and like huge fan base in Los Angeles, for relatively speaking, including like totally fascinating, like devoted Mexican American fans and stuff. And lots of Asian Americans, like a really fascinating, cool scene in San Francisco and LA. And plus, I love going to the West Coast because I'm from the East Coast. So our hope is to maybe go do like San Diego, LA, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. When that comes out, take a week off. And then do, probably separately, but do similar on the East Coast. It's easier here because we can drive.
Yeah.
Without a lot of rigmarole. So, and then beyond that, though, I don't know. Maybe that'll be it. Who knows? Or maybe some.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to be disappointed
Either way.
with any outcome because it's just
It's great.
to play these shows, to be with these people, to have something tangible and new that we get to present to people.
Yeah.
When you are doing music full time for a living, you got to pay the bills. We played an insane number of shows. We toured all the time because that's how you eat. We were a professional touring band. That's how you eat. We were a couple times when we got a little chunks of money for the Clueless soundtrack and a Volkswagen commercial the song appeared in, and we were able to like not tour for a few months, and it was like amazing. But now we don't have any of that, so we can just do what we kind of want to do. You had to just kind of keep at it, and now it's a little more.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what we can do, just one-off style. And like I said, some stuff might work out, some might not, and it doesn't matter. Let's just see what we can do.
It's a great weight lifted from your shoulders.
It really is.
Yeah.
You earned it big time.
Thank you.
We should probably wrap it up. We have rehearsal at 6.
Yeah, I don't even know what time it is.
I don't either.
5.
You'd think one of us
Really?
would wear a watch.
Okay.
We got to grab some food.
Yeah, we've done
Yes.
probably more than
Yeah.
Yes.
All
Is there
right.
anything you want to do to wrap up?
No, just thank you for your time and what we were talking about is just the kind of thing that we like to talk about on StageCraft and how musicians connect with audiences. And I love the fact that you used the word StageCraft, a lot in this. And and thank you so much. And I can't wait to see your show. And
pleasure.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Kat and Don. I am so happy that somebody's talking about StageCraft and specifically connection, because it's really come home to me now doing this again, that connection is the key.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, actually, it really got more concrete when I was helping out a friend of mine, Fred Parker. He had an open mic at his place, his chili parlor. Sure, go right ahead. And he, I saw so many acts, 10 acts a night for the open mics, and I almost felt like shouting, "You got some good songs, but get it together up there."
Yeah. Oh. You probably could have just pulled them aside afterwards.
Well, sometimes, but sometimes that's, I guess it's timidity sometimes where you just, these are, just my songs, just leave them alone.
And they might figure it out on their own eventually.
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is Don on StageCraft with Catherine, and we've been listening to Velocity Girl and talking with them.